And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Craig Campobasso, multiple award-winning filmmaker and Emmy-nominated casting director. He is an experiencer, a starseed, and he's an author of many books. Some of his books, which we're going to be talking about today, are The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac and the UFO Hotspot Compendium. Craig, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we are excited to have you, Craig. And before we get into all this UFO stuff, I'm aware that you have had some spiritually transformative experiences, or at least one.
I've had several, but how I explain it is, I was brought up in the Valley and really wasn't into science fiction. Never thought about what was out there in the great big universe. Went to work, went and had fun with my friends on the weekends and things like that. And around the age of 26, I had just finished in the casting office on Amazing Stories, where I began my casting career as an associate. And I say that's when my own amazing story began, is when I finished that show, because I began having these lucid dreams with three universal master teachers. And really, I would just see them in this lucid dream. And I'd wake up and I would feel really like warm and I just felt this unconditional love vibrating from them. And then I would sort of go back to sleep and not think about it again until the next night, and it happened. And so that went on for about 2 months.
This was every
And
night?
then every night, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the next 2 months was a little bit different. Um, I would wake up in the lucid dream and realize that my soul, my spirit, was where they were. So then I started to pay attention to it, saying, I wonder what this means. And I started contemplating why this was happening, etc. And then the last 2 months is I would be in the dream, I'd wake up in the dream, and then I would wake up in my bedroom and open my eyes, and their astral bodies would be at the foot of my bed. So they were in color, but I could see through them, right? I didn't freak out. I didn't anything. I there was just so much love emanating from these three beings that it was just amazing. And then from that point on, then I was where they were, and they were feeding me off their hands like this. I was floating in the middle of them, and they were feeding me this golden light that was going into my spirit body. And I woke up feeling like nirvanic. It was almost like I was floating in my own physical body. And as time went on, I realized what that was, is that they were waking up the cells in my body, my cellular memory of my cosmic heritage.
When you say cosmic heritage, are you saying that these beings are your star family?
They're part of it. Yeah, they're part of,
They're
well, my
ETs?
star. Uh, well, two of them I would call ultra terrestrials, and the other one, two were female, one is male. Um, and the other one it would be what I would call a fully conscious um, being, right? Which means um, they have full cognition of their entire brain. Um, they would have the same abilities as a Christ or as Christ did, that type of thing. You know, because they're in that form. So I say Christ, Budaic, it's whatever you want to, wherever box you want to put that in.
Maybe they're like fifth or sixth dimensional beings or density beings.
Definitely. Well, two of the beings are, they're like so far in dimensions. It's amazing. But um anyway, so for after that experience for like the next 8 months, I I just couldn't believe everything I saw the beauty behind the creation of it, right? From people, and then I was started to be able to read somebody's soul history and see what they have gone through and all of that. You know, that great saying, I think it was Philo of Alexandria that said, um, uh, you know, treat people well because you don't know what they're going through. Well, that's not the exact quote, but it's something like that because everybody's going through some great trial in life, right?
It's true.
Um, so I every time I would see this, I would sob, and I literally would sob, you know, for 8 or more minutes, and I couldn't stop, and this happened anywhere, you know, 8 or more times a day. And I had a casting office on Sunset Boulevard, so if an actor came in and that happened to me, I would have to go into another room and just sob it out, right? That kind of thing. And it was really one of the most beautiful experiences, right? That I really think of fondly because what it did is it helped to um, sort of like cleanse the soul in seeing this and doing the reconnect with, you know, what I call the cosmic heart, the, you know, or cosmic consciousness, uh, in that respect. And then I just started having more and more and more experiences that just kept elevating my consciousness over a period of 2 years. And, you know, and I shared all these experiences with all my friends and things like that. I used to ask actors whether they were famous or not. You know, if a ship came down tomorrow, would you go for a ride? And almost everybody said yes. You know, maybe 20% said no, you know, because they were fearful of it. Um, and so, anyway, you know, at the end of this 2 years, I decided to go to Mount Shasta where I had another major experience. And when I came home, I had written a book about all these experiences. And I wanted, you know, I wanted to try and get it published. So when I came home, I was feeling quite good and really that I had accomplished something, right? In writing a book. And so I um I had an experience with the male master teacher who said to me, what would you say if I told you you just wrote that book for yourself? And I said, then I learned a lot about myself. And he goes, I want you to sit down and I want you to write and write and write until you can write no more. He said, you're now going to write the books that you came here to write. And that's how the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga series was born. So right now there's 4 volumes out. There'll be 7 in total. I've finished 2 more. So I just have 1 more to write. They're not released yet, the 2 new ones. And so it was, I don't know. It's hard to capsulize it when you've gone through, all of this incredible experiences, and then people started bringing me people who were having not so good experiences, abductions, people who had implants, really weird implants. A guy had eye implants. He showed them to me. They were all
Wow.
around the back of his eye. Like, he lifted up his lids and I mean, he was crying and I don't blame him, and he goes, I know if I get them surgically removed, they're just going to put them back in. He goes, they see everything I see. Right. And it was interesting because another contactee said, I know that they're seeing everything that I see through my eyes.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know if he had, you know, things in there, but, it depends on the race because they could put ethereal implants in there and see, and you would never know. Right. But this guy had physical implants. So, so that's how the journey began for me. And then I just started researching all kinds of contactee cases. I started meeting ufologists. I started going on cases. One case I actually photographed an extraterrestrial.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was amazing. It's very strange looking creature. Well, a humanoid in form, but the legs ended where our knees began, and then it had a gigantic long torso, and then a long neck, and then a sort of elongated head, right? So, and these were the beings that were visiting this gentleman.
Is there somewhere where we can see that photo?
It's in the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac. It's in the very back of the book. I call it the unknown alien, I think, in the book. So, um,
Where did you see this being?
well, he was taking me. Um, oh, I'm going to condense the story.
Okay.
He had gone fishing with his young son. The rest of the family was gone. They were out there during the day, and then they saw all these lights coming, and then my friend was abducted. His son hid in the brush where little creatures um, were sort of standing there guarding him or looking at him, and they weren't really quite sure at the time. When my friend, the dad, got back, he got his son, they jumped in the car, they ran back, they got back to the house. Now, when you live in these really out there places, um, the backyard is forest, right? So every time I was there, I would think, oh my God, a Bigfoot could come walking out of that forest into your backyard, right? Well, when he got home, the extraterrestrials were walking out of the forest and coming towards them. And so the father told me the story, the son told me the story, the house, you had to walk upstairs. It was, up a little higher, built higher. So from the son's bedroom, when you look down, if there was like a 6-foot man, the head might be about where the windowsill starts, right? Even probably a little bit below that. So he was telling me they were coming up and they were walking there. They started having all kinds of strange things happen. So they vacated that house and they just left their stuff in it and they moved somewhere else, right? So he took me back to the house, me and another friend, and he took me to the forest. I could hear rustling in the forest, by the way, right? And it was about dusk, and I had a Minolta camera, and when he was showing me where they're walking me out, I just kept snapping photos, right? One after the other after the other. It's like catching orbs, right? You never know what you're going to catch. Didn't know I caught anything. Um, in the hotel that I was staying in the morning, I started going through it and I saw the outline of the body. The body was all in shadow. And then when I lightened it, I could see its face and it was wearing goggles and it was holding a light that was round like this. And I immediately heard that those are interdimensional goggles and that's an interdimensional light. And my friend said that being allowed you to take its picture, it wanted its picture taken because he captures all kinds all the time on that property. And now on the property that he's on, not these beings, but he captures other things that are more um, positive, right?
Hmm.
Not that those beings in the end were positive, but it was frightening because it was a brand new experience, right? Um, so anyway, it was just very fascinating to see all of that. It's hard to explain, when you're there and you're feeling the energy, but you're not seeing it. Then all of his kids were like, "You took Craig there? We want to take him there and tell him our story." So we went back the next night and we actually went in the house because all of a sudden they started having some really strange paranormal activity. And so we were out back by the thing. One of the son's girlfriends started taking pictures, and she caught what looked like a mantis being standing in the forest.
It's
Very
interesting.
interesting. Yeah,
It's interesting how the camera picks it up, but our
it
eyes
does.
don't.
Our eyes don't. It's just the same with orbs, right?
Hmm.
It has something to do with something with the lens, something where it doesn't. Now, when I've gone to paranormal places or other things, if I hold my phone up like this, like when I was in that hotel that The Shining was, where he wrote The Shining, down in the basement, there's a big piece open where you see the rock uh, and all of that, right? Where the employees come in. That's the portal. And when you hold your phone up like this, there are thousands and thousands of orbs going like that.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite remarkable.
In preparing for today's conversation, I heard you talk about that if you look through glass, you can see cloaked ships or something like that.
Yeah, like even, like a piece of glass from a picture frame, like an 8 by 10 frame,
Mm.
right? If you if you're looking in the sky and you see nothing and you hold it up, if there's a ship there, you'll see the ship, right?
Oh,
And pretty much it's the same sometimes with even your iPhone, right? You can do that and go closer, and if it's there, but cloaked, you'll be able to see it.
were you an investigator from MUFON?
No, but I've gone on MUFON investigations. And they had me write these two books. Number one, because I got to know a lot of the investigators as well, but they know what in-depth um, uh, research that I've done into all kinds of contactee cases. So everything in the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac is based on a contactee case, right? Or hybrids.
Well, while we're on that book, I think in the book you write about 82 different races of ETs.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that number?
Well, then the number I had about 120 that I could have written about, but the publisher said I had to keep it under 300 pages. And I was always a fan of Paul Hellyer, who is the Canadian Minister of Defense, who had come out talking that extraterrestrials exist,
Yeah.
for a very long time. And towards the end of his life, he said that he knew of 82 races that were visiting Earth. And I thought, if I can squeeze 82 races in there, then that's how I'll honor Paul Hellyer.
Hmm.
So that's why there's 82.
Have you ever considered writing a part 2 and adding the other 60
I
or 40?
I have, but the publisher doesn't want to do that yet at this time. I've even redone all the artwork in color, and I tried to talk him into doing a hardcover color book with me revamping the original book and maybe taking out a few races and adding in a few new ones. They
Oh,
were keen on it, but then they just never went for it. Um, but but you never know. I mean, there could come a time where they might want to do that.
I hope so. I think it would be a
You
great
know,
idea.
yeah,
Well, how
yeah.
did you do the research for that book?
Well, I've been researching contactee cases, like I said, since I was 26.
Mm.
So I've been doing it over 40 years. And interestingly enough, and in the back of the book under further reading, um, a lot of those books are out of print. So I put the places where readers can buy those books and in a PDF off of a website.
A lot of people will say that the ETs are benevolent, and a lot of people will say they're malevolent. What is your take?
They're a little bit of everything, just like we have here on Earth. The majority is benevolent. There are very malevolent factors. There are some that are just curious about us. There are some that have agendas when they come here, right? Like stealing our DNA and doing all of that without permission. Star seeds, before you come in as a star seed, your contract is signed, and it is signed that if they would like to take your DNA, that you allow them to take your DNA. Now, that is also for creating hybrids that would then therefore be of Earth origin and of extraterrestrial origin. Then these children are brought up, they're called the seventh ray race. These children are brought up there, they're taught. Some of them might be dualistic, some of them might be fully conscious, but then they're taught how to become fully conscious. And then they come and they live on planet Earth as regular humans to help raise the vibration. They will also, when the Earth shifts, they'll be placed um, on all four corners of the world in small towns, wherever, to teach people, because then people will feel more of a kinship because they feel a connection to them because they're part Earth and they're part extraterrestrial. Now, we already know that there's lots of hybrids, right? There are lots of hybrids. Um, and hybrids can come into being in many different ways. As I was telling you before, the documentary to the ET Species Almanac is done and it'll probably be out in about a month. It'll be out on DVD first, but we go through the whole thing about how hybrids can come into being, and there's a lot of different ways. So it's very interesting because there's man, I mean, I've come in contact with many hybrids, and they are all so beautiful and benevolent.
When you say hybrids, do they still look completely human, or are there some features that are a giveaway sign?
Well, I had one friend who she has passed away. Her fingers were a little different, and she almost had aqua eyes. She had a very translucent skin, and she looked very, very different, but the same, right? And she was just, I mean, she was just a beautiful, beautiful soul.
Do you think that
So
these hybrids know that they're hybrids?
some do, some don't.
Do you think it's possible that ultimately all the ETs are good and people are just misinterpreting their
No, no,
contact? Oh,
no,
okay.
no. Oh God, no. No, no. Look, this is a universe. Let me see if I can find those statistics real quick. All right. All right. So the Alpha Centaurians, right? Which is a Nordic race. I have met with many of their contactees. They're pretty much all from Peru,
Hmm,
right?
wow.
Some of them live here now. Um, and I have one of the contactees is actually in the film talking about the Alpha Centaurians. Mind-blowing information. They say that they know of 1,019,000 extraterrestrial civilizations. That's what they know of, right? Then, if anyone is into the Urantia book,
A little bit of it.
a little bit, yeah.
And I've
No,
had a
I don't think
guest on
anybody.
about that.
Yeah. The grand universe number of what they call our world, they call it Urantia, right, is 5,342,482,337,666, right? So the fascinating thing about that is it's even more incomprehensible than that, right? We can't fathom the entire ovum of the super universes and all of the local universes within them, and then the multidimensional layers, right? It
Mhm.
goes beyond,
Yeah.
but we are all a part of that, and we're a part of that in different embodiments as well. As our soul progresses, our soul starts to split, and we start to we start to experience in 7 different bodies, right? So I know some people here on earth who know that they're from the same exact soul,
Hmm.
right? Which I find fascinating. I've only met 2 people like that,
What do you
right?
mean
The 2 people.
they're from oh, you mean like twin
The
flames?
oversoul. No, not twin flames. It's your oversoul. So their oversoul split into 7 different souls, and then is having 7 separate experiences. They don't have to all be on this planet,
Oh,
right? So so you just start gaining more experience as you grow older and wiser in your soul history, right? So it just, for me, it's like the more I learn, I just say the less that I know, because it just brings upon more and more and more questions, um, to all of that. I mean, nobody has all the answers. I think maybe the angelics might. They might know certain things more than us, right? Um, but I find that, um, in a lot of the cases that I've done, some people have had some really horrible experiences.
I think you'd be a
So,
good person to ask. Why do we come to the earth? And if we reincarnate, why do we come here over and over again?
so Earth is a place of duality, right? Most of the universe in on all of the planets, they're fully conscious, so they don't have duality. They've already merged their light and dark. So their heart rules their mind. Here, our ego rules our mind until we learn to connect them, right? So this is what we're learning here, right? All the planets are different learning spheres, right? So when you finish here, then usually you'll go back to Melchizedek, which is 490 college spheres in the Mira system, right? And you'll go back to school and you'll figure out what you want to learn in your next extraterrestrial incarnation. Now, remember, extraterrestrials to us, we're extraterrestrials to them, right? So then if we decide that we're going to go to, another planet that's more um, science oriented, right? Like up there, they combine spirituality and science. They call them spiritualists, which is very, because they take it from the actual creation on why something is created and why it is, and then that's what they build upon and learn from. So
Well, if we go back to Peru, they
right.
find those skulls there that are elongated.
Hmm.
Are those beings in
Yes.
your book? And if so, who are they?
They're not in my book, but I've been to Peru. I have actually seen those skulls, and they've done a lot of testing on those skulls. They were not binded or anything to elongate them at all. Um, there's one where like the head is just gigantic, and then it's a little thin frame as well. So there seemed to have been a lot of that, but you have to, when you go back and you look at all the pyramids and all of these ancient civilizations, they all have the same reptile holding a purse.
Mm-hmm.
They all have, all these different things, Aztec, I mean, they used to draw all that stuff on rocks. I mean, they're beautiful rocks. They would get rocks like this big and smooth them out, and they would draw the actual extraterrestrial, their ship. They just did all of these amazing things. A friend of mine has a collection of over 200 of them, so I've been able to see them all. And another friend has some really um, stuff that's carbon dated way, way back, that is actually where they took from. I don't know what the actual stone is called, but it's not a regular stone. It'd be not like an agate, but something that's green, not jade, but something. And and they hand carved a flying saucer with all the designs, and then it comes off, and then the little aliens are sitting inside. I mean, it's amazing. So we know that all of these civilizations were visited by extraterrestrials and that they were taught, right? Egypt, Aztecs, um, you know, it goes on and on and on. I mean, such a rich history of all of that. And, a lot of it's been lost or it's been kept hidden and that kind of thing. So I just can't wait for our planet to go fully conscious so that we will have the knowledge to go into the Akashic records and get all uh, the true recordings, because really what they do is they can go into the Akashic records, and if they wanted to, um, like, let's say, take out the pivotal parts of Jesus or Moses or Noah's life, they can actually record the actual life of these pivotal moments, and then you can watch it on a history coin in a machine.
Hmm.
You pop it into the machine, and then it comes up in a 5D theater, right? So, um, I mean, that to me would just be so fascinating. I mean, just think of I mean, I would probably live in a history coin machine for years, just looking through all of the most fascinating stuff, in the world. By the way, our souls are the recorder. We're the recorder. So right now, we're being recorded in the Akashic records. Everything we do, that's where it gets recorded. Our soul's the recorder.
If we go back to Peru, are you aware of who created the Nazca lines? Well, not Peru, but I guess South America. So the Nazca lines, Puma
I
Punku,
don't.
any of these Machu
I
Picchu.
don't. I don't. I did go to Machu Picchu when I went to Peru, and I will say, if anyone ever wants to take that trek, definitely do it. It was like being on another planet. You felt like you were so close to the Godhead when you were there. I can't explain it, but it's a trek. I mean, it's a trek. You're in Cusco. You got to get in a van to go to the train, and then you're on the train for a couple of hours, and then you get in a small van, and then they drive you up the mountain, which is frickin' horrifically scary because it's just drop cliff, right? And there's crosses and flowers on you know, every turn.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and but what I didn't know is that they do have a little hotel up there. If I would have known that, I would have actually stayed there for my duration in Cusco, right? Because I was in Cusco for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days. I would have rather have just stayed at Machu Picchu because of, the stuff. But a lot of gore and stuff happened up in Machu Picchu as well.
Out of all the races that you wrote about, do you have a favorite?
I do. I mean, I tend to lean more towards Pleiadians, but that's what my star origin is Pleiadian. When I was being woken up, and that's what my books are about as well. Um, I was being woken up. The second I heard the name Pleiades, I just cried and cried and cried, and I knew that that was my home.
Would you say that the people that were visiting you in your dreams were Pleiadians?
No, they were not, but they were connected to them, right? They were connected to them. These beings, I what we would call, I would call them thought adjusters, because they were there to get my thoughts adjusting to the cosmic way of thinking, right? The Pleiadians then started coming in not long after, right? So, and then in meditation, um, I would go very deep, and then all of a sudden, I would just see beings pop in, like I'm looking at you inside my mind. I get a click at the back of my neck. It would go like that. Then I'd see them. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they just smiled, um, things of that nature. So I called it sort of like the cosmic internet.
Do you think it's possible you have an implant?
I don't think that I have an implant, but I've been told several times that I'm a hybrid,
Hmm.
right? I would, I mean, I couldn't prove that, but I know how hybrids are made. And I know that it very well could have been, right? What they do is, well, one way of it is when the egg is fertilized, then they inject the extraterrestrial DNA into the egg, right? They can actually do it later as well and adjust your DNA even, when you're 5 years old or that type of thing. Um, so, but I've never had implants in me, right? And I have lots of friends that have implants. I may have ethereal implants that I could have.
Has any of these beings ever revealed the human history to you? Like, are we
N-
from this planet or were we brought here?
No, it's not that. But I myself, I mean, I think this planet goes back a very, very long, long way. Um, and I mean, we think about all of the different beings that have been here, Pleiadians, Syrians, Atlantis, when Atlantis was here, um, Lemuria, the Lemurians, currently are, they used to be almost over 3/4 of California, part of Lemuria. And then when the cataclysms or the catastrophe happened, they did go under, so they lived below Mount Shasta. The old ancient Atlanteans lived beneath the Mato Grosso in Brazil. And then there's a whole Agarthan network of all of these different lands and places there, which all seem to have a Melchizedek priest, and in some cases priestesses. So they're the master teachers from Melchizedek.
When you were in Mount Shasta, did you see ships or anything?
I saw somebody had taken a picture of a ship that was going transparent. So it was part transparent, and you could see part of the ship. Um, I've seen it in Mount Shasta. I've seen it way up in the sky. I haven't seen anything low. Um, I in Sedona, yes, for sure. Just take night vision goggles. You will see them all over the place. I did take a picture. I think I have it in the UFO hotspot book. Um, when I was traveling down going towards Bell Rock, there was a giant silver orb like this, and it was traveling along the side of the road, and I knew it was a probe, right? And I was able to grab my phone quick enough and get a couple of shots of it. So I put that in the UFO hotspot book.
Cool.
Yeah, and then where everyone sees them all the time is at ECETI Ranch in Washington State.
So this
And I went there.
so this book, The UFO Hotspot, Do you give us directions of all the most famous hotspots in the US, or is it global?
It's in the US and Canada. And so what we did is the head of MUFON sent out to all the state directors to nominate their favorite hotspots. I collected them all, and then I went through them. I knew which ones were my favorite hotspots. And so then I started compiling them, and I either worked with, like, for instance, when I did the Integratron and Giant Rock, which was George Van Tassel, who was visited by extraterrestrial being named Salganda, who gave him the blueprints to build the Integratron, which would keep us young looking, because when the building would be turned on, you could walk through one side to the other side and it would rejuvenate your cells. That's how they stay looking young and how they live to be thousands and thousands of years old as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I had access to the archives there. One of my dear friends who's still alive was there with George in the beginning days when he began channeling extraterrestrials. He was the very first person to channel Ashtar. And she was there for the whole duration until his death, right? So she knew everything that went on. And and then also I had access to the historian of Giant Rock, right? And then, like in other cases, I work directly with the MUFON investigators, and then we brought everything up to date with the most current information of what's going on with those cases.
Are there any cases here in Texas or any hotspots here?
I don't know if I had any in Texas. I'm not sure. Is the Marfa Lights down
Well, the
there?
Marfa Lights, yes, down near the border. I've actually never been
That's
down
by
there
the
to,
border.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I did a little thing on the Marfa Light.
Have you been to
Um,
all these hotspots personally?
no, not to all of them. You know, I've never seen the Marfa Lights, but I've been to a lot of them. I haven't been to the ones in Canada. Um, and the ones here that are my favorite are Sedona, all of Sedona. Anywhere you go in Sedona.
In your book, do you give driving directions on how to get to these places?
Mhm.
And even a map, like showing where it is?
Yeah, actually, let's see if I can find the book here. Yeah, so for instance, for the Valiant Thor story where his ship is parked at Lake Mead, um, I give you the coordinates where it's parked. If you want the coordinates to where George Adamski first met Orthon,
Hmm.
you have those. You want to go to where Travis Walton was abducted, I give you those coordinates. If you want to go to where Lonnie Zamora saw the two little extraterrestrials that came out of the ship, you have those coordinates as well. So you get to have those coordinates, but also I give you, like, for instance,
Well, when you say coordinates, could you use these coordinates on Google Earth as well?
yes, you would, sure, absolutely, absolutely.
I guess
So,
you could, this could be like a book two in progress too, because like, remember the
absolutely.
thing that happened in Vegas a year ago or so?
Yeah, yeah.
You could kind of keep updating that book.
Absolutely. So I give you the when, the where, the why, pictures, especially the Integratron and all of that. We use pictures that hadn't been seen before.
Do you have the exact place near Roswell where the ship was sighted?
Well, here's the thing about that. It's on private property.
Uh-oh.
So, I mean, I know people go, right? But I can't give those coordinates,
Right.
right? But you could easily find them, I'm sure, online, right? Um, and then, I give you things to do when you're there, and also, you know, especially like Giant Rock is out in the middle of the desert. So I had to give you directions from the Integratron on how to finagle your way through the desert to get to Giant Rock. And you can't just walk up to the Integratron and visit it. You have to make an appointment, right? An appointment to do a sound bath in
Mm.
the upper chamber, which is like laying on a mat, and they do the singing bowls. And because it's a sound chamber, it feels like you're starting to elevate. And it's the most incredible experience. And you really do feel the cells in your body shift and change,
That's
right? To
cool.
this incredible, beautiful, positive thing.
Now, this is in
So,
Arizona near.
no, that's in Landers. That's out by Palm Springs,
Oh,
Landers, California. Yeah.
what do you think is the most popular spot in your book?
I would say the three most popular is the ones I said: East Ranch, Sedona, and the Integratron and Giant Rock
Where is ESETI Ranch?
in Washington State.
Oh, okay. Is there a Mount something that's there?
Mount Adams. Yeah,
There you
you
go, Mount
actually
Adams, right.
you see Mount Adams from the property,
Hmm.
and actually at night when you're sitting in your chair just looking out over this giant field with Mount Adams in the background, you will actually see lights just go off in different things. There are these anomalous lights. And the people there say that there is a Pleiadian base below because they've seen ships go in and out of the mountain all the time. And one time, I guess a ship in broad daylight was just hovering over their property.
That would be cool to see.
I sure would. Yeah. There would be a time to say, damn, I left my cell phone in the
Yeah.
house.
Well, I love the subtitle of your book, and that is All the Places to Visit Before You Die or Are Abducted.
Doctor,
That's great.
I did not come up with that. The publisher did, and I said, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's just brilliant.
Yeah. This is kind of a little bit off subject, but what I found fascinating is that you worked on the original Dune movie.
Yeah,
And
I did.
honestly, that's my favorite out of all of them. I've seen all of
Yeah,
them, and I don't know, I love the soundtrack. I love the cast. For me, that's still the best.
it is. And it's colorful
Hmm.
where, the new Dune ones are dark, but, um, I think Frank meant them to be dark. Not ours was colorful, but it was still dark, right? I mean, David made T-shirts and gave them to all of us. He
Hmm.
said, you know, dark is for Dune, light is for life. That's what the T-shirt said.
Mm.
So I worked on that for 4 years.
It's
Um,
amazing. It took that long to create that movie.
yeah, from beginning. I was there from the very beginning when it was just me, David, two secretaries, and the producer.
I
And it was just us for the first year.
From interviews or what I've seen or read about him, he seems to be unhappy or disappointed with the movie. But again, like I said, I think he did a great job.
You have to understand that, they he didn't have a director's cut, and they cut out the whole Fremen section. So that's where Denny, who's doing the new Dune movies, was smart. He ended it right before they were going into the Fremen territory, right? Because otherwise you would have a 5 hour movie. And I do recall, I think there was like 6.5 hours worth of film. Um, now, I know he was very upset at that. There was a changing of presidents at Universal, and which was not good for the film. And also, um, at a certain point, Universal went back to David many years later and said, "Well, we would like to give you your director's cut."
That would be awesome.
And he said, "Great, I'm just doing a project. And, as soon as I'm done," and they said, "No." And he said, "Then you don't have me." And he said, "So take my name off the movie." So when you see that version, it will say directed by Alan Smithy,
So
which
they,
is the name the Directors Guild uses when directors want their name off the movie.
that's going to be released?
Oh, it's been out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I'm
it's been
surprised I
out.
haven't seen
But
that.
but it's not the full version. It really isn't the full version. I
Oh,
mean, it doesn't have a lot of the Fremen stuff or any of that. But since you're a big fan, there is a documentary out. You can only rent it online called The Sleeper Must Awaken.
mhm.
All of us behind the scenes are in that. It's really, really good. And then a gentleman by the name of Max Evry, Evry, he just came out about a year ago with a book called David Lynch's Dune, something in disarray. If you look under Max Every, you'll find it. It's on Amazon. It's a hardcover book. It's only like 26 bucks, right? And so Max interviewed all of us, and when he called me, I said, "Oh, well, you're not going to get David." And he goes, "I already got him." I go, "Are you kidding me?" So he did his first interview since the movie was released. Now you have to remember, everyone put the movie down when it came out. They hated Virginia Madsen in the beginning. That was not his idea. That was Universal's idea, right? They're like, "Oh, you have to teach us like little school children and, all this kind of stuff." I didn't mind it. That book is hard to get through. I mean, it really is a hard book to get through.
It's a long book, but I love the book.
Yeah,
I would
right.
think to put that whole first book into a movie because there's a lot there. And again, that's why I say I thought he did a good job with what he could in three
He
hours.
did. He did. And I think he's kind of seeing that now because so many people are saying that the original is still their favorite. I'll be honest, I love both versions, but just for different reasons because they were able to do what we couldn't do with visual effects,
Yeah, sure.
right? I mean, everything in there that they were able to do, I was like, "Oh man, if we could have done that." Our like one ornithopter was a piece of wood spray painted gold that went across the screen. you know
Mm.
I mean, there were a few shots in there that were so questionable, but I mean, in the beginning, John Dykstra was doing the special effects, and something happened between him and the producer, and he had just done Star Wars, so we we could have had it would have been a whole different movie if John Dykstra had
Mm.
been there. I was at Apogee all the time, in the beginning.
Now, did you do the casting for that movie?
No,
Oh,
no, I was just at a high school.
oh, okay.
I literally was at a high school. I was working at a film company that made teasers and trailers, and the owner's best friend's sister was an accountant on Dune, and they were looking for a production assistant. And I was quitting there, so they suggested me. And she called me and she said, "You don't even have to come in and meet us. We'll just hire you. They say you're great." And I said, "Yeah, no thanks. I don't want to be a messenger, right? Because that's basically you're a gopher, right?" And And then, I finished my Friday day. And then, back then you're like paychecks after taxes, like $250.
Hmm.
I went out on the weekend, had a good time, had no money at the beginning of the week. And thank God she called me back on that Monday. She goes, "Are you sure?" And I went, okay. I begrudgingly took that job.
Wow.
Oh my God. I thank her every day for calling me back because that's what gave me my career. Literally gave me my career and my tutelage, by just watching David and Dino and Rafaela and, all of that. And, it was Rafaela who said to me after Dune, she said, "Well, what department did you like?" And I said, "I like casting." So she put me on Taipan as a casting assistant. And then from there is when I went to Amazing Stories. And then I went back to them and started casting films for them. So,
Yeah.
um,
And that's really interesting for me is how does someone become, I guess you would say, a caster? I mean, how do you know who would be the
casting,
right person for the right part?
it's a lot more than what people think because when you get a script, you get a budget, and they tell you how much they have for each role over a certain period of time. And then you have to know the name actors that will work for that money and be in your film. Now, if you have a David Lynch or a Tim Burton or a Steven Spielberg, doesn't matter. Everyone's in,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's in. That's easy. When I cast for John Voight or James Franco, it's like, James Franco's producing, he's in the film. John Voight's producing, he's in the film. I'm in. I'm in. You know, it's a whole different story. But if you just have, a regular director who's done some nice work and that, until you can establish getting one star, that's how you build getting the other stars, and we're not talking A Tom Cruise stars. We're talking, more of the B list, which is still phenomenal in the B list, but you need those names to generate your distribution and all of that. And it's particularly difficult to cast comedies, especially. I love spoof movies. I cast a couple spoof movies because you want every single part to be funny, right? So you have to like find people who are good with physical comedy, can do accents, can do all all different kinds of things.
Well, even Dune, I would assume the two biggest stars were Sting and Patrick Stewart. And
No,
and
Patrick Stewart.
and he wasn't
No,
at the
Patrick
time.
Stewart.
Yeah, he wasn't
He
at the
Patrick
time.
Stewart was not known. He was not known at all. The biggest stars, Kyle, Elizabeth Lustig, who worked for Jane Jenkins, who was the casting director. Um, they sent her all around the United States looking for Paul Montib, and she found Kyle, right? And he's from Seattle. And so anyway, he flew in. I went and I picked him up that first day, brought him to the Sheraton. I said, okay, just like get freshened up. I brought him in to meet David. Then we did 2 days of screen tests. Um, which were so fun for me because I had never seen live full blown screen tests before. Michael Bean, Kevin Costner wasn't famous yet. He screen tested. There was probably like maybe 8 or 9 guys, including Val Kilmer, who really was Paul Dib up until that point.
Wow, that would have been
Yeah,
interesting.
and I'll just never forget. Val went up and he was good, and And Kyle was up there, and Rafaela was sitting on my left. Jane was sitting on my right. And when I saw Kyle do that, I was just like, oh my God, that guy's it. And then Rafaela just leaned over to me. She goes, "Should we change his last name?" Yeah, I was like, "No, let him keep his name, you know." And he was just, he was just great. He's so much fun too.
Uh,
He's such a great
yeah,
guy.
and I think he did great. I mean, for me, still, that's the prototypical Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he was fantastic. Fantastic. So,
Hmm.
you would really enjoy the book. Let me just grab it real quick. Hold on,
All
hold on.
right.
So it's called A Masterpiece in Disarray, David Lynch's Dune, an Oral History.
Oh.
There.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so he, I connected him to a lot of the actors that he couldn't get a hold of. So every actor is in here, everybody from behind the scenes. Rafaela did it. She said she wasn't going to do it unless David did it. So when David did it, she had to do it. Bob Ringwood, who's very vocal, he was our amazing costume designer.
Are there a lot of pictures?
Yeah, I'm going to show you some. There's me, David, Rafaela. That's Anthony Gibbs, who was our editor. And I don't know who that woman is who's sort of between me. I'm right in the middle. That's
Mm-hmm.
my young self.
Yeah.
Um, and
Do you know how they chose Sting for that part?
it's in the book, and I can't remember exactly how. Let's see if I can do this. And there's me in my office and David
Mm.
in his
Oh.
office
Huh?
there. Um, I think from what I remember, he was starting to do a little acting, and I think he was kind of playing coy, like he didn't want to do it, didn't want to do it, and then then he did it. He wanted to do the scene nude without the wings.
Wow.
And then Universal said no. So Bob had to make those wings the night before, right? To For Sting to wear in that shot. Um, I sent that shot to Sting for him to sign it to me, right? It was like this big. And I sent it to England and he mailed it back. And I was like so disappointed he didn't sign it,
Hmm.
right? So I put it in a frame, I had it with all my other Dune stuff, that kind of thing. And then one day I'm like looking at it and I went, I'll be damned. He wrote Sting really little around his nipple.
That's crazy.
I thought that was great. I was like, oh my God, that was so good. So,
Well, what else do you got going on besides your new books coming out?
well, we got that. We got the documentary for the ET Almanac, which is an extension of the book. So you're going to actually see the real contactees. You're going to see hybrids, professionals. I've got the two top regressors, Barbara Lamb and Yvonne Smith, who have regressed people, who have been abducted, who have had good experiences, bad experiences, and what have you. Um, and it's a really it's a good piece because you get to learn about a lot of different things, but in the end, you walk away with a really incredible feeling, right? With a really, really incredible feeling. And so, I mean, everyone that's seen it said, "Oh my God, I just have to have a DVD of this to watch it over and over and over again." Because there's so much information in it, and there's so many visuals. We did do CGI to bring some of the ETs to life. We blew out ET photos into 3D and we just did anything and everything we could do to, make it interesting. So
Will this be available like on Netflix or
it
Amazon or
will, it
Gaia?
will eventually, probably next year. Right now, what we're going to do is we're just going to get the DVD out, and then we're going to start working on that. It takes about 2 to 3 months for once you get it up into the distributor system for it to go through all the I think they call it QC, to and then it goes out to all the distributors to all of those channels to see who wants to take it on and you know bring it in and that kind of. It'll be on iTunes. It'll be on everything.
Great.
So yeah.
Obviously, we didn't get into it, but you have a whole nother book series about Thor and other
Yeah.
things.
Well, that is The Stranger at the Pentagon. This thing, that's this book. And this was written by Dr. Frank Stranges. He passed away. Um, God, I can't even remember I remember it was in November. Was it 2008, maybe? 2000, I can't remember the exact year. Um, but I met him and I thought it was just going to be a nice lunch, hearing him tell the stories. I mean, when I read the book and I saw the picture of Valiant Thor, I just felt really, uh, it resonated with me. So that book always stuck in the back of my mind. And my casting partner at the time had two elderly friends. She said they live in Arizona and they see UFOs all the time. She goes, "You have to meet them." So they finally came to town, and the wife, she was very sweet. She just had this sweet little Southern accent. She said, "Well, Craig, Craig, we see them UFOs all the time. Our friend Dr. Frank." And I said, "Do you mean strangers?" She goes, "Yeah, you all made them." Just like that. I was like, oh my God, it just fell right in my lap, right? So anyway, I went and met him that next week and we became friends and he told me about all the stops and starts of trying to get the film made and all of that. And then one day he called me and said somebody called and wanted to make it into a movie, and he didn't know much about that stuff. And would I come since I'm in the film business? And I said, sure. So anyway, long story short, after that meeting, um, I wasn't going to let him get involved with the person because they had never produced anything before. And the guy said he only did deals on a handshake. And I said, well, you're not doing business with Dr. Frank. So anyway, long story short, I sort of got swept into writing the script. And, so I would go and sit with Dr. Frank and listen to him tell me all his stories because he first met Valiant Thor at the Pentagon in December 1959. Next time he saw him was in 1961. The first time he met his crew was in 1967. And then he became friends with the crew. And when he started embarking on doing worldwide tours, he was on the stage with Werner von Braun, with all these people. His wife has all the scrapbooks. He was in Korea just to see Dr. Frank. It was Dodger Stadium filled to capacity. That's how much they wanted to learn about Valiant Thor, right? So it's really, really just amazing. And so I ended up writing the script. Dr. Frank passed away, and I just put it away and grieved, for some years. And, because I am connected with all of the other ETs, and I have a telepathic connection and downloads and things like that. Like actually, when we were doing the script, after the first pass, I gave it to Dr. Frank, and then I went and met him a week later, and he said, he gave me his written notes, and then I asked him, I said, "What did Val say?" And he said, "Oh, he said to tell you, good job." And I said, "That's it? No notes?" And he said, "No, that's all he said." And I thought that was really odd, right? So I came home, I went to bed, I woke up in the morning, and all the notes were downloaded into my head and they were spinning, I swear to God, like the rings of Saturn. I had such an urgency to get to my computer and just write everything out. So that's how all of his notes came through in the process,
Is it kind of like
right?
automatic writing?
Totally, but it's there, right? It's already there, right? It's
Mm.
automatic writing coming from him,
Mm,
right?
wow.
It's a different experience when he's around, right? Because when I write, as I did with the autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga, all those beings shared their feeling body with me telepathically, visually, through all of the senses, but also a part of telepathy that I don't think a lot of people thought about is because they are a civilization of truth that they share their full being with you. So you know every inkling of them. You know all of their past history. You feel it, not that you're going to go write a book about it, but it's like encapsulated. And it's so beautiful. Again, I would sob for 15 minutes because they're so beautiful. And when a created being, whether it was in one of my books or if it was Valiant Thor, I would sub for 15 minutes. My literary agent, right? I never know how people are going to react when I'm pitching my scripts to them, right? And I'm telling her about them, and I'm seeing her eye quiver, and then her lips are quivering. I go, "You want to cry, don't you?" She goes, "Oh my God, he's so beautiful. I could feel it." And then she just started sobbing, right? Because she was so connected into it. And so many people, so many people are. I had a film crew come here, right, to talk about it. And it was a male and a female host. It took them like hours to set it up. It was here in my living room. And I sat down and I saw this pink beam of love just encapsulate. And they started talking to me. And when I started giving them the answers about Valiant Thor, the guy just lost it. He just started sobbing. And then the female started sobbing, and none of their equipment would work. So I said, so this day was just for you to get this amazing healing from Valiant Thor.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So, I mean, like I said, my body was prepared for those 2 years to do this. It took it takes a long time also to sustain it, right? Because, when it first comes, your body is you get lightheaded, you sway, it's like you're in this vortex until you really start to acclimate. And then when you acclimate and you connect, that's really what they want to do with the planet. They want us to acclimate, connect, we rejoin universal society, and then we can get back to the way the earth was before we became this sort of planet on the edge of the universe where nobody wants to go,
Do you
right?
think all the ETs are just waiting on us collectively?
They are, but they're the ones who are in charge of all of the consciousness raising programs, star seeds. Tehran, who is that's Tehran. This is the first book. It's called I Am Tehran, the autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga. He's Pleiadian. Um, he is um, he's one of the lead professors at Melchizedek that teaches starseeds before they embark to Earth, what to expect, where they're going to be incarnated, what language, all of those kinds of things.
And he says, good
So,
luck.
and yes, but they're all monitored. All starseeds are monitored, and if help is needed, they do try and send assistance. Sometimes, they'll work it where they can find somebody to help you here on Earth, right? Or help you through your dream states, or help you in many different ways, right? Many different ways. I mean, a lot of times when I was um, struggling through belief systems, right? For first of all, in the beginning, a lot of them came and helped me to adjust, right? That's why they're called thought adjusters, because we don't want to go, some people who can't handle it will think that they're losing their mind. So that's why it has to be done in such a way that it seems seamless so that your mind doesn't fray.
Well, Craig, after watching this podcast, if people want to reach out to you, are you open to communication with the audience?
Well, they can definitely reach me through the websites, autobiography of on anet.com. That's where they can get all the books, these books, ET Almanac, UFO Hotspots. And I'll sign all the books for them if
Oh,
they want that. Stranger at the Pentagon.com. I have all of Dr. Frank's out of print books there. All those sales go to help me to get the feature film made. I made the short film. You can watch it on the website there, or you can watch it on Amazon Prime.
before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Well, I think the best positive message is that you should always be working on yourself to better yourself, to raise your vibration, because the more you raise your vibration, others around you feel it and they will start to raise their vibration. And when we can get all the vibrations on the planet in a high above the collective, then we shift over and everyone starts working from the heart. The heart and the mind become one.
That's a great message. Craig,
Yeah.
thank you for being my guest.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.